may not be suitable for all audiences.
It's showtime!
Art 101 with Mr. Burgher.
Scholars, welcome back to another episode of Art 101 with me, Mr. Burgher. I'm a professional artist and master educator attempting to provide you with the best in our historical content. If you like the content, make sure you like, share, subscribe, interact. Very much appreciate that.
Whee! It's the winter wonderland! Whee!
There have been several art groups and exhibitions that have changed the shape of art history. The Impressionists, top of the list. Today we're going to take a look at the Impressionists and their 8th and their final art exhibition. Let's jump in. So let's get ourselves caught up to speed here a little bit and take a quick look back at the 7th Impressionist show, where we saw the exit of Edgar Degas and huge success for the Impressionists, as 1882 was a great year to be an Impressionist.
See? I must have some taste for art after all.
Taste is simply just knowing how something makes you feel.
4 years had passed. Bertha Morisot was asking around about having another Impressionist exhibition. There was certainly interest there, and she went to the great master of the Impressionists, Camille Pissarro, to get his input on it, and he was very instrumental in getting this off the ground and a huge advocate for the art of the Impressionists. And they had talked around about getting this thing going for quite some time, obviously, and Pissarro was a huge advocate for allowing Paul Signac and Georges Seurat in their pointillist or neo-impressionist style allowed into the show. And this was mostly because Pissarro was largely working in that exact same style, learning from Seurat primarily, continuing to work in that style, but at any rate, they were trying to get their group together to move forward.
Then what are we waiting for? Yo, Joe!
At their core, they felt that Edgar Degas was an important part to organizing the exhibition and allowed him to help and take the lead back, although they continued to have some issues with him involving all of his realist friends into the exhibition as well. Degas insisted that they hold this event May 15th through June the 15th of 1886, and why those specific dates? It's all because of the Salon. He wanted to directly compete with the Salon and what they were putting together. Most of the other people felt like this was a ridiculous idea. Why in the world would you compete with the biggest art show in Paris? Why not hold it in April like they always had done, leading up to the Salon? But no, Degas had his mind made up, and despite this disagreement, he got his way. Now, a moment ago, I said that Bertha Morisot was influential in getting this going, and she was. But she was also a little bit upset by all of the infighting and all the other things going on, so she would withdraw her support from the organization component, and this put Degas 100% in charge of these things, and he was completely left to his own devices. But it did leave the matter of the finances up in the air, because he and Mary Cassatt were kind of working together to get this going, as she kind of became a instrumental part in the organization once Morisot was out, but they were both unwilling to take on that financial burden. Pissarro was really big in trying to get this thing going, but he had no money as normal, and it was really kind of up in the air as to where the funding and the money would come from. Gustave Caillebotte had his issues with Degas, and he was not involved. Monet was not involved. Renoir was not involved. Sisley was not involved. Cézanne was not involved. And so it's really kind of unknown, honestly, as to where the money even came from to get this thing going.
Investors? Possibly you!
In the end, they would assemble 17 artists to display 249 works, again during this show that would take place between May and June of 1886. The artists involved would include Brocamond, Cassatt, Degas, Forain, Gauguin, Guillemin, Morisot, Camille Pissarro, Lucien Pissarro, Redon, Ruart, Schauffenecker, Seurat, Signac, Tillot, Vignon, and Zandomeneghi. Paul Gauguin was back and also brought with him Emile Schauffenecker, and Camille Pissarro, as mentioned, also brought in his son Lucien for the first and last only time in this exhibition. Several of these artists were brought in by Degas. Several of those names we have talked about in the past, but one that is very much withheld was Jean-Francois Raffaelli, who you will recall was the artist that was the topic of a lot of discussion. He was very promoted by Degas as a protege of his, but was not allowed back in by Degas because of all of the conflict that arose from him being included in the first place. So he disinvited him from his involvement.
From now on, we are enemies. You and I.
Georges Seurat's painting titled A Sunday Afternoon of the Island of La Grande Jatte was a major work of this particular exhibition, and as noted previously, his influence on Pissarro was pretty substantial. All of the works that had been exhibited this particular year by Pissarro were shown in a pointillist style, which very much shows the influence that Seurat had on his work. Another huge feature of this particular exhibition were the pastel drawings that were created by Edgar Degas, which were a little bit more of the intimate voyeuristic style of Degas, kind of weird, creepy stuff as we look at them today, but very much show his drawing expertise at the same time, I guess.
Always overdressing for the wrong occasions.
Outside of this particular exhibition, this is also a time of Paul Durand-Ruel's push of the Impressionist artwork in the United States of America. In 1886, 300 works were sent to New York, which include the works of Monet, Pissarro, Renoir, Manet, Morisot, Sisley, Degas, Signac, and Seurat, in a show that was called The Works in Oil and Pastel by the Impressionists of Paris. America was a new bright point to sell these Impressionist artworks, but Monet would soon have a different opinion. He didn't really like the idea of these American barbarians purchasing his work and often refused to sell or send his works to America later on in his career. Although Durand-Ruel would say to him in correspondence, I quote, "Don't think that the Americans are savages. On the contrary, they are less ignorant, less bonded by routine than our French collectors." In contrast, Monet had said, and I quote, "I've never been particularly in favor of the American venture, and if you take them," meaning the paintings, "away to America, it will be I who lose art everywhere." And he said this in 1886, the same year that this was all taking place, in correspondence to Paul Durand-Ruel. And it was the American Mary Cassatt that tirelessly worked as an advocate for this work to be sent over to America in the first place as well, who seemed to have a pretty good relationship with Monet and all of the Impressionists for that matter.
It was as big as Hulkamania.
This 8th show was underwhelming, but not completely disappointing. The art market was shifting across the Atlantic, and these Impressionists were looking at new opportunities and approaches, and appreciators of their work had expanded to America. And that would be the end of the Impressionist exhibitions that were formally put together by the living artists. They would never again come together as a unified group to exhibit again at all the same way because of so many variables and cogs of the wheel not really coming together. But we can enjoy looking back and reflecting on what happened, what could have happened with this interesting group of artists that came together to become known as the Impressionists. Scholars, I hope you've appreciated this look at the Impressionists and their exhibitions as much as I've enjoyed bringing them to you. Stay tuned for more content, and you have yourself a great day.
Even for the intranet, it's pretty shocking.